Welcome back to Thoughts from the Roundtable. I'm your host, Jacob Keith.
And I'm your other host, Pierce McCammon.
Today, we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated TV show.
It's the animated one.
I think they know. Oh my god. Let's try this again. Welcome back to Thoughts from the Roundtable. I'm your host, Jacob Keith.
And I am special guest, Pierce McCammon.
You're not a special guest.
I am a special guest, and everyone will know.
Let's try this one more time.
I'm the special guest.
You get one more time.
I'm the special guest, okay?
Welcome back to Thoughts from the Roundtable. I'm your host, Jacob Keith.
And I'm your other host, Pierce McCammon.
Today, we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated TV show.
But first, before we jump right in, we gotta say a little bit of a thank you, I think. Because right now, I think we're sitting at like 200 views, 203 views on our first
that's
episode.
what it is right now.
And that's completely absurd because, not gonna lie, last episode, kind of bad.
Yeah.
Kind of really bad, though.
I think we, could have, just looking back, there's a lot we could have done better. And we are going to address those issues in this podcast, but you don't know what they are, but you'll see at the end.
Well, I think you're gonna see one right now because there's a big problem that we realized we had after we uploaded it, and that's the fact that we never said what the podcast was gonna be about. So I think we need to clarify that, and if you couldn't tell by the theme of the podcast last episode, we're gonna be covering like movies, TV shows, video games,
pop culture
really is what this podcast is going to be mostly about. Plus, I don't know, maybe some other little joys and little hidden treasures along the way.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I do know what we are going to be covering. That's pop culture.
And jewels.
No.
Precious ores.
No, you're going to have to cut that. So really, thanks to everyone who watched the video. Thanks to everyone who subscribed. We're at 29 subscribers, which is way more than we ever thought we would get.
Honestly, yeah, we were thinking that this would top out about like 15, like a year down the road. So that's a lot of growth.
And we also have our Twitter page, which if you're not following, please follow us.
Roundtable_podcast, link in the description.
Yeah, we have polls there to decide what subjects we should do. So don't forget to check those out.
Yeah, we actually got like a whole 13 votes, which is like a whole 13 more than I thought. To be totally honest with you, I thought we would put a poll out and it would get like 3 days with 0 votes, and then I would vote for something.
Yeah, we were kind of nervous we were going to be the only people who voted.
Which we didn't actually vote on this one.
Abstained.
We let you guys kind of decide, and I think that we're both a little happy about the results.
Yeah, we talked about in the last podcast. We really wanted Clone Wars,
and now we have it. We have the Clone Wars. We have the recap. We have the new show starting up. What is it, Friday?
Yeah, that's tomorrow.
Absurd. That's so exciting. The Clone Wars, that is, won with an astounding 69%. So
nice.
That's a nice moment.
Yeah, I think Clone Wars is really what we wanted to do, and I think that was part of our problem in the last podcast. We weren't very passionate about the subject.
It's very true.
And Pierce and I are both extremely passionate about Clone Wars, and we both disagree on some things, which I think will be interesting to listen to for you people who are listening.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing me and Jacob can agree on regarding the Clone Wars, it's that we both have an obsessive, possibly unhealthy amount of love for the series.
This is very true.
This is a fact.
So without further ado, join us at the round table. So to start our conversation off, for those of you who haven't watched Clone Wars,
which is just a travesty, might I add, it is on Disney Plus. Watch it.
Yeah, you really should watch it before listening to this podcast. Pretty clear that there is spoilers.
We're going to be diving into some very spoiler-heavy content, as this is a recap.
Yeah, so the Clone Wars takes place after Episode 2 and before Episode 3.
Yeah.
Except for Season 7 is going to take place during Episode 3.
And a little before.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out, but we'll be talking about that in a later podcast.
Hint, hint. Stay around till the end of this podcast to find out about that.
So this TV show tells a lot of unique stories that the movies didn't really pick up on. Stuff like the humanity of the clones, Ahsoka Tano, who is Anakin's Padawan, and a bunch of other characters who we'll get into.
I think like the real like the win of the Clone Wars is like think back to I think it's what is it? It's A New Hope is the first mention of the Clone Wars, and it's like you're in that movie. Fans were like told about this awesome time period where like Jedi were fighting, and we can only like imagine back then, or the people then. I'm not sure I was alive. I'm almost positive I wasn't.
Yeah,
actually.
see, it came out in like 1977.
I was not alive. But I can imagine, and I've seen people talk about this, about how, like, they were curious about what the Clone Wars is, and then, you got to the prequels, and you got, like, not that much Clone Wars, really. And so this show bridges that gap, and it does so kind of phenomenally.
Yeah, I don't know if it could have been done better.
I really doubt it. Listen, I'm not kidding when I say that it is probably one of the best, if not the best, piece of Star Wars media out there.
I would say that's arguable, but I tend to agree.
Yeah, it's so good. And yeah, I just can't stress this point enough. Watch it. Jacob watched it for like the first time this year.
Yeah, when Disney Plus came out is when I started it.
Yeah, which is unbelievable to me because he called himself a Star Wars fan. But I mean, what are you gonna do? I've seen it like what, 6 times?
Probably
6 times all the way through. Maybe I'm a little obsessive.
Yeah. So if you're like me and haven't seen it, again, we highly recommend watching it.
Yes.
It's I think the way a large Star Wars story is supposed to be told is in this long form, almost like it is a TV show. So
yeah.
a TV show type story where you have a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. And if there's a couple episodes you don't like, that's okay because it's not like it's a whole movie.
Yeah, and I mean, this show can get weird. Like, there was, like, that one episode where, like, the clones got infected by zombie worms and then became zombies.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
It was a little weird. Like, you could experiment, and there was so many good stories that came out of that, like, experimental phase of what the Clone Wars was.
And I also think what's so great about this show is that, maybe you think, animated, I don't want to watch that. That's for children.
For little babies.
The reason that it works so well is because they can do whatever they want with such a little budget.
Yeah. Get rid of every preconceived notion you have about a children's show. Because when you watch the Clone Wars, you're going to start off with like season 1 and 2. And yeah, it's a kid's show. And you can tell that it's a kid's show. But it's one of the only shows, and there are shows that do this, but it's one of the only shows that actually grew with the audience. It's like as I grew up, the themes got more mature as I was watching it. And by the end of it, it's really not a kid's show.
No, there's some really dark themes in like season 5 and 6.
And some like disgusting deaths.
Yeah. And I think, that's why this show is so much better than Rebels.
Yeah, Rebels.
That I'm watching right now. This show wasn't afraid to kill people.
Oh, no. And really embraced it.
Yeah, and so you have deaths of people who you have come to like as a character. And Rebels really kind of fails at that. And that's why I think Clone Wars has a much better legacy than Rebels does.
Yeah. Even though, like, Rebels is technically, like, reviewed higher,
yeah.
Which doesn't make sense because
True.
It's really not that great. But we're not talking about Rebels today. That's a story for maybe another time.
Yeah. We're going to really tackle Clone Wars. So I'll start out with just some of the characters.
Yeah.
I think that this show is why it succeeded is because of all the characters. Not only that it grows, Anakin, there's a big gap in Anakin between episode 2 and episode 3. And this show just perfects it.
It really does. It really does.
Because Anakin, in the earlier season, he is that, kind of rash. He's cocky.
Yeah.
And I mean, he still is that toward the end of the show, but you can sense the dark side growing in him as a character.
And you can see him, especially like through his interactions with Ahsoka, his Padawan, which we never see in the movies. Which honestly, it's a shame that she's not in the movies.
Yeah.
Like, you get why she's not in the movies by the end of the show, but like his interactions with Ahsoka really, a lot of it shaped him into like the Vader he would become.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone saw that coming when they saw the Clone Wars movie when it came out with little Ahsoka. because she was not like good.
No,
But
she's very annoying.
She grew almost or not even almost, way more than Anakin in the show.
Yeah, the reason I started with Anakin is because I think that was a big problem with the prequels when they came out. Is they're like, how did Anakin get from Episode 2 Anakin, where he's still pretty much a child, to this murderous, Dark Lord?
Yeah.
And this show does it really well. And I think, the scenes that we see Anakin become darker are some of my favorite scenes in the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime he does something even a little bit, cruel, it plays the Emperor's March in the background.
Yeah.
And it's just great.
It's really good.
The first time I saw it was when they were on Mandalore, and one of the characters whose name I can't remember said, who will strike me down and become the cold-blooded killer they are, and then Anakin runs up and stabs the guy. And just what a great scene, as me, who was kind of iffy about the show up until that point. And then I was all in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I remember that, because I was sitting on my bed when that happened, and I heard you squeal. And I was like, what happened? And you said that, and at that point I knew, yep, he's got it. This show's good.
And sadly, me squealing something while I'm watching TV, laying in bed, happens more often than I'd like.
Oh, it happens.
Because, watching this whole show, Pierce wasn't watching it with me, but he knew what was going on just by me getting excited.
But no, you in general though, you squeal at everything. I'll know Jacob will be sitting on his bed reading a book, and he'll just be like, "Ooh, ee."
Yeah, we were reading Dark Disciple, which kind of goes with the Clone Wars. It's a novel written about what could have been these episodes in the Clone Wars.
An 8-episode arc, which would have been just huge.
Yeah, and Pierce finished it before me, and I was getting to a part, and he knew exactly what part I was because I was getting excited. And yeah, this show really is, like I said, the long form version of it. It feels like the way Star Wars should be done, because we really see, Anakin's character growth and Ahsoka's, who is our next character I think we should talk about.
Yeah, because Ahsoka is huge in the Star Wars community now. If you only religiously stick to the movies, then you probably don't even know who she is, which is just, it's so sad. I'm sorry.
It's a real shame.
I'm sorry. But in the greater Star Wars universe, Ahsoka's huge, and she has a huge following.
Yeah.
Because she's a really good character. She's probably one of the better characters in Star Wars.
I agree. Because, she has this growth that, people who may have started watching this show when they were children, they, see the maturity in Ahsoka, almost in, they see it in themselves.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's this annoying, I don't feel bad saying that, because she is super annoying.
She was a brat.
In the first few seasons, and then she matures with, what she's seen, and I think that's, she learns how to really become a Jedi.
And she matures quickly. Really quickly. Probably more quickly than, your normal child, but, I guess that's what you get when you have a 14-year-old leading an army into war. So I guess, you mature a little bit faster. But I think that's a really good dynamic.
Yeah.
And her and Anakin's relationship is so good.
So good.
The
Clone Wars writers did such a good job of really building a character from nothing. I know a lot of writers have to do that, but with Ahsoka, they had to fit her in to an already established story and essentially get her out by episode 3.
Yeah. It's really impressive how they actually did that, and it came off not as forced. Everything that happened to Ahsoka throughout the show that led up to her leaving the Jedi Order at the very end, and one of the most heartbreaking scenes of probably all of television.
Yeah.
And I'm not even exaggerating that. I was listening to a Star Wars movie soundtrack the other day while I was reading, and Ahsoka's theme when she left the temple came on, and I had to take a double take because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna start crying here in a second.
Yeah, her really, we see her maturity like we said, but also the end, we see her finish her role as the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, and it truly is heartbreaking in a way that I didn't even imagine it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I knew they had to write her out somehow, but I didn't know it was going to be this brutal.
Yeah. And it's just impressive that they made it work with her character. You know, it's like it doesn't feel like they were writing her out. It felt like a natural end to that part of her life.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so good about the show. Nothing felt pushed.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have to do something just to get a character out or put a character in.
Yeah.
Everything felt like fluid in the writing, and which is really hard to do in a kids show.
Especially in a kids show.
Because, you know, they have these restrictions of, man, it can't be too violent because there's 10-year-olds watching this.
Yeah.
But I think they did just the perfect amount.
I would completely agree. It's something to behold. And I'm so thankful that it got saved and that they're making the final season using, like, it's made of the arcs that were never seen before, which is so cool that they're finally getting the light of the day, the light of day, and, like, the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see, because if you haven't seen the commercials for episode 7, Ahsoka is back in it.
Yeah.
And as I love Ahsoka, she's my favorite character in this series.
Oh, I think so too.
You know, we'll talk about Darth Maul here in a little bit. He would be my runner-up, but Ahsoka being back is a huge reason of why I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Because the novel she's in is really good, and she's also in Rebels, and she's really good. And the voice actor has passion for the character, which is sometimes hard to find in animated shows because, you know, you can't put your full body into it. But I think all of the voice actors in this show just did an unreal job.
Really. Especially D. Bradley Baker, who voiced the clones.
Yeah.
What a hard role to tackle. This man is voicing, like, literally hundreds of thousands of different people. And every one of them is so unique. He's got, like, the clones. This is my favorite part of the show, guys. I don't know if you know this about me. You probably don't. But let me explain this about you, okay? Or me, not you. I don't know anything about you. I want you to know that awkward silence was me staring directly into your soul. I want you to know that. But anyways, back to what I like. I like clone troopers. I like clone troopers a lot. Ever since episode 2, when they came out in their cool little gunships that made the funny noise, I loved them. I was all in for clones. In this show, if you're a clone lover, this show, The Clone Wars, it's for you. Because, oh my gosh, every one of the clones has, like, this vastly different personality. And you get attached to, like, literally different versions of a carbon copy of one another. It's wild. And you get, like, such memorable characters like Rex, who is legitimately, I don't know, he's got to be one of the best characters of the show.
Yeah, Rex is really, you know, a character we didn't know a lot about, and now he's established, pretty much one of the established characters of the universe.
Yeah. Along with that, you know, you got the Domino Squad, and you follow their stories from when they're cadets to when they're ARC troopers and fighting and dying, and it's so meaningful. There's a scene in the Umbara arc, and let me tell you, if you have seen the show, you know what I'm talking about when I say the Umbara arc. But let me just set the stage. The clones are tasked with dropping in on this planet. And it's kind of like dark and foggy, and they're fighting these alien dudes. And basically, the synopsis of that arc is that the Jedi General in command, Pong Krell, is actually turning away from the Order and wants to become Count Dooku's new apprentice. And so, in that, there's this scene where he talks to 2 different legions of clones, and he sends them at each other, and they say that the enemy has stolen the other's armor. And so, since, you know, if you've ever seen Star Wars, they've got the full white bodysuits, you know. So they think that when they're shooting at the enemy, but they're shooting at themselves and killing themselves in friendly fire. And there's this scene where they all, like, when they find out, Rex finds out, and he rips off his helmet, and he's showing people. And they line up, like, each of the legions line up with their helmets off, looking at each other as, like, brothers who they were just slaughtering, and the music's playing in the background, which is so good, and they're like crying, and you can see the emotion in their eyes. And for an animated show, that is unrivaled.
Yeah, it really shows the humanity of the clones. Like, these are people.
These are people, these are lives that were bred for war. And I mean, it's a super immoral concept, and they actually dive in and tackle it with like certain episodes where they're like, I was literally bred for war, but like, what if I don't want to be there? There's one clone that becomes like this random farmer and has a family. And Captain Rex at one point, because he was so like caught up in his doctrine, was like, this man's a deserter and I gotta report him. But after spending some time and seeing like kind of how almost like gross the idea of a clone army is, and how he had no chance to be his own man and have his own family, he didn't turn him in. And I think that speaks volumes.
And this show really like shows the almost like how odd it is for this Jedi army, because like, you know, the Jedi are leading this army.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be the people who uphold good in the galaxy.
Peacekeepers.
Yeah, and they're literally breeding people to kill.
Yeah.
It really shows that well. And it makes you feel like, am I on the right side cheering for the Jedi?
Yeah, it shows kind of how far they've fallen as an order. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you kind of got an idea of that watching the movies, but you get such an idea of kind of like I don't know, would you say the flaws within the Jedi Order? Like, their hypocrisies?
Yeah. I mean, like, it talks about that a lot in the book, too.
Yeah.
About how all of the clones are pretty much taken, like we said, bred for war, while the Separatists, you know, they have their droids, and people who die in the war are people who signed up for it, and the Jedi just kind of shrug that off, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that big a deal, you know?
And
they're not Jedi.
I think that's another thing that, you know, really speaks volumes about how good the show actually is because it shows a little bit of the humanity in the people we're supposed to see are all evil. You know, you've got your droid army, your lifeless clankers, you know? And at the first, like, when you're watching it, like, in the first couple episodes, or first couple seasons, you're like, well, these guys are just the evil people for the good guys to beat. But then as it kind of gets farther, and you're like, wait, who really is the good side? Is there a good side? It's complicated.
Yeah, especially with, you know, this also shows Emperor Palpatine's running the show the whole time.
Yeah.
And it does a really good job of that because, I mean, we do see it in the movies, but not like this.
Not like this. It's so, like, it adds so much. And I think Jacob can testify to this because he had the chance to watch it for the first time and get it with fresh eyes. And it changes the way you look at Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is so much better. You feel so much more emotion when you see Plo Koon die. And, you know, you've only seen Plo Koon once before he dies, essentially. Yeah. You've seen him, you know, at the temple and stuff. But really, you've only seen his character be built once, and that's in the big battle on Geonosis. And it really makes it more emotional. And you have all these Jedi dying. You're like, hey, I like these people. I have a relationship with these people. These are my friends. Kit Fisto, when he dies, you know, usually you don't really care. Like I said, you've only seen him in one battle. You've seen him sit on the council, but other than that, you know, who cares? But we see Kit Fisto a couple times in the Clone Wars, and he builds, like, they build him a character that you should care about. Yeah,
and I think it makes Order 66 so much harder. If you thought that scene was sad, then you couldn't even imagine what it's like after you've seen these characters, especially let's use the Plo Koon example. He was gunned down, but you could see his character and he's building with his troops. You know, there's his earliest episode in the Malevolence arc when he's like tells his troops to remove their helm or to his troops say that like they're expendable, and he's like, not to me. And you can see like his clones have such a respect and admiration for him. The Wolf Pack, they really care, and to see them just cold-heartedly, almost robotically, turn on him and gun him down is so much sadder.
Yeah, and that's like when Commander Cody orders his troops to fire on Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
You're like, how could he do that? Because we see this relationship that Obi-Wan and Commander Cody have, and it's just like, why would he do that?
Yeah.
It makes it so much worse.
It makes it so much worse, and it explains why they do that. And I actually really like the explanation. I find it a lot more plausible, the Clone Wars explanation, than what was the Legends explanation of all of them just simultaneously, like, oh, we gotta follow orders, so shoot down your friends, you know? But the Clone Wars, like, made it kind of, like, almost changed canon a little bit there, and made it so that they have, like, implanted chips that force them to turn. And I think that's even sadder.
Yeah.
It shows even how much more immoral. It's like, not only are you breeding these men for war, you're also implanting them with a chip that makes them turn on their friends. Like,
Yeah.
it gets dark.
Yeah, speaking of some dark parts, we've talked about the clones, we've talked about Ahsoka, we've talked about Anakin. Let's talk about some of the Sith Lords in this.
Oh my gosh. Dooku, kind of good.
Yeah, he makes Dooku's character in this show makes it so much worse when you see, like, he was Emperor Palpatine's pawn this whole time. And then when you see him decapitated in episode 3, you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
He's done nothing but serve the Emperor.
Yeah.
And now he's dirt.
Yeah.
You know, like, that means a lot more. And Dooku, you, like, see how powerful he really was.
Yeah. And I think both the Clone Wars and I gotta recommend, we've both been reading the canon books here recently. And they're very cheap on Amazon. If you care about Star Wars at all and want a good read, I can't recommend them enough.
They're so good.
They're so good. But the earlier ones talk a lot about Dooku's character. And that, with the Clone Wars, makes him seem so much more than what he is in the movies. Because really, he kind of just shows up at 2, and you're supposed to be like, oh, this guy's evil. But, like, you see him, like, you see his backstory, you see his motivations, and he becomes such a better character.
Yeah, I mean, in the novels and in the Clone Wars, we see how he truly used to be, like, the star of the Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
You know, he was essentially like Anakin.
Yeah.
I think there are some parallels between him and Anakin in this series that we see in, the first trilogy that came out of Star Wars. And I think that Lucasfilms did a really good job of making sure that was extremely clear.
Yeah. And I think also, like, some of the other, like, Sith that we see, like, the Sith assassin, Asajj Ventress. And it shows her, like, as an actual person, too. At first, she's like the ugly bald girl who's got the 2 lightsabers, and she, like, fights with Anakin and Obi-Wan.
And she kills people.
And she kills people.
She's really good at killing people.
She's awesome at that. But, like, she grows.
Yeah.
She grows. Dooku turns on her. She floods. She joins back, like, to her sisterhood. You see her past as a Jedi apprentice at one point. And you see that, like, her master die in front of her. You see her motivations for turning, and then her life as a bounty hunter. And you can even see in the few episodes while she's a bounty hunter, she, like, saves people because there's that innate goodness in her that has been swallowed up by the dark side.
And I think that's one of the great growths of a character is the growth of Ventress's, because I knew she was, like, a character. I like people on the dark side. I think they're more interesting. I think there's a lot more that they can do, and that's just cool.
Yeah.
And I like seeing them kill people. I don't know, it's just entertaining. And I knew that she was going to be one of my favorite characters. And I forget which arc it was, but they were on, like, wherever the clones were being made. Camino. And she stabs the clone and then kisses him on the cheek and then throws him off her lightsaber. It's like, oh my gosh, this is brutal.
Yeah.
And then to see that character be the one who pretty much saves people's lives in the end is really unreal. And it doesn't feel like an unnatural process.
It doesn't.
That's what's so amazing about it.
Yeah. And we cannot talk about Sith without probably mentioning the best thing Clone Wars did in its entire runtime, and that's bring back Darth Maul.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Does that get good?
Yeah. The drama that Darth Maul brings throughout the series helps make the series really what it is.
And what an incredible voice actor.
Yeah.
Plays him. His name's Sam. It's with. I don't know how to pronounce it. Starts with a W. You can look up the Who voiced Darth Maul. It's that guy. He's insane.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of the best, if not the best, voice acting in this show.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Because it's really hard to capture the range of emotions we see Darth Maul go through.
Yeah.
You know, when we first find him, I had an idea just because I knew he was alive because I saw Solo before I saw this show. And I was like, oh, hopefully they'll mention it. If not, this is a waste.
Yeah.
And they did, and I was super excited because the first time we meet Darth Maul, he's there on this junk planet, and he's barely alive, and he's just saying Kenobi's name over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm all in. Just that first part, I'm all in.
Yeah. And oh man, it shows him recover his mind, but his mind always focuses back to killing Kenobi, and that is so good. He makes Obi-Wan suffer, and it is so hard but so fun to watch.
I think all of my favorite arcs, but 2 of them include Darth Maul.
That's so true.
Because my favorite arc, I can't speak for Pierce. My favorite arc, without a doubt, is the Darth Maul on Mandalore arc.
While that's good, I mean, I definitely disagree with you pretty strongly on that part. Because while I do think that arc is by far the most entertaining the show has to offer, it has to rank 3rd for me. Because first has to be Ahsoka's leaving the temple. There's no episodes of a show have ever, and probably I doubt will ever, make me that emotional.
It is really good.
It's very good. And when I say that I disagree with you quite strongly, I'm not at all saying that that's a bad arc, because it is it was so good. It's so entertaining.
I think it's really whatever you think of Star Wars is what your favorite arc will be. And I think that's what's so good about this show and why it's so universally loved, is because it has a little bit of everything for everyone. Yeah.
I made this point on an earlier YouTube channel that I made. I made a video about Star Wars. And I came to the conclusion on why the fan base is always so split is because Star Wars means so much to people, and it means different things to every one of us. You know, because there's so much media out there that you could have your own view of what Star Wars should be, and that is totally supported by the franchise, but it could be totally different from Jacob sitting across from me. And I think that's the beauty of the Clone Wars, is because there is something in there for everyone to latch onto. It's why it's so universally loved. It's one of the very few things in Star Wars that I've not met a single person that said, yeah, that's bad.
As long as they watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
If you just watch the first 2 seasons, everyone's like, oh, I don't really like it.
Yeah.
Watch the whole show.
But if you watch the whole show, you're not going to think it's bad.
No.
Because there's something in there for you. Whether it be the silly gun, which I don't think that's for you. I'm gonna be honest, but I'm sure someone likes when Jar Jar is talking to Mace Windu about his Queenie. I'm sure someone likes it.
Not for me though.
Not for me. Not for me. But maybe you like the dark elements. Maybe you like the humor of it. Maybe you like the banter between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Maybe you like the brokenness of Darth Maul. Maybe you like the humanity of the clones. There's literally something in there for everyone.
Yeah.
Or if you're just a lore junkie.
Yeah. It really explains so much of like stuff that the movies didn't explain.
Yeah.
And the whole so I really would like to talk about the Mandalore.
Okay,
so we're gonna we got off track. Let's talk about it. So we see Darth Maul and his brother Savage, which a great added character that we obviously don't see him in the movies, but he's Darth Maul's brother. He is Count Dooku's new apprentice for a little bit until he is kicked away, because no one will ever be good enough for Dooku.
Well, also that, and he tried to kill him with the Asajj Ventress.
That's beside the point. That's beside the point. Beside the point. But Mandalore is mentioned a couple times in the show before this, but I think this is where it really hits its stride.
Yeah.
So Darth Maul wants to, him and his crime families, who, if you like lore, you'll be all in on this.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, the Pikes, the Black Sun, all of these crime junkies that if you've read a couple Legends books, you'll know about them. Mm-hmm. And we see them take over Mandalore with the help of the Death Watch, a Mandalorian group who is against peace.
That's so good. As a Mandalore, it's like a Mandalore cult that just hates peace.
Yeah, because in this show and in the Clone Wars, Mandalore remained neutral to avoid war because Mandalorians love war.
Yeah, well, the new Mandalore that's established in the Clone Wars is trying to strike away their warrior past.
Yeah.
And the Death Watch is trying to bring it back, and that's such a fun dynamic.
Yeah, and so we see, Darth Maul, he takes over. He takes Satine, who is the Duchess of Mandalore, and imprisons her, hoping that his one true rival, Kenobi, will come to rescue her. Now, her and Kenobi were once in love. And let me just say, does that make Obi-Wan such a better character?
Oh, it really does.
That's what, this, not only does this arc super entertaining, but it really character builds Obi-Wan.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because Obi-Wan, we always see him as this, he's a good guy. He never breaks the rules. Wrong. He was in love.
Yeah.
As I feel like, that's what helps him and Anakin build this relationship. Because I think Obi-Wan knows.
Oh, Obi-Wan knows.
He knows this whole time. And he doesn't say anything because he was once in Anakin's shoes.
Yeah.
And anyway, beside the point, we see Darth Maul and Kenobi. We skipped a little bit, but let's just skip it for this point. Kenobi and Darth Maul are face to face. And Kenobi's lover is on Darth Maul's right. And he says, I have the perfect punishment. I will make you suffer. And he kills Satine in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi's eyes. And the music plays as he stabs her with the Darksaber. And man, is that an emotional scene.
Yeah.
Because...
heavy.
Wow. Obi-Wan, we see he is truly, not just this poster boy Jedi Knight that he was in the first few.
I think that this arc shows the first step to Obi-Wan breaking. It shows this is the Obi-Wan we saw on Mustafar in episode 3. The one distraught over losing his best friend. This is that Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
It's the first glimpse of him. And it's really, really heavy hitting.
Yeah. I did not expect this watching that arc. I thought, Darth Maul's going to try to kill Obi-Wan and he'll escape, normal shenanigans.
Yeah.
Because I knew Obi-Wan survived. But I did not expect this to happen. And really and truthfully, that's why it's the best arc. We see Obi-Wan as Satine is dead, as he holds her in his arms crying. And I just say, wow, why is a Jedi doing that? But that's why Obi-Wan is more than just another Jedi, like, Plo Koon or someone like that. He has human emotion that we really don't see on the big screen. And Clone Wars captures that with really almost all the Jedi.
Yeah, and I think that point drives home, just one of the many other reasons why you should watch this show. And I've talked to a lot of people when I've been recommending this show, and they say, well, I don't really feel like I need to watch it because I know all the characters live, so there's not really, stakes. Let me tell you, there are so many things you're not going to expect. You know how some characters live, but you don't know what they went through to be at that point. And this show is perfect. It perfectly builds on those characters and makes them so much more rounded by the time you get to episode 3. You actually seem like you understand their perspectives.
And that's why, you talked a little bit about the Ahsoka leaving arc. That's why we see Anakin pretty much the way he is. I mean, it's a combination of stuff. And You know, it's obviously Padme.
Yeah, obviously the breaking point was Padme, but what led him to that being like a breaking point for him? Like what happened that made him so scared of losing Padme? It's losing Ahsoka.
Yeah, and they really captured that so well.
Yeah. I think that one of the scene where Ahsoka is walking down the steps of the Jedi Temple to that all too familiar song is one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire show.
I think that's hard to argue.
I think that might be the most beautiful scene.
Yeah.
It's the emotion is all there. Earlier in the show, she was accused of bombing the Jedi, or being like colluding and bombing the Jedi Temple. So already we're dealing with terrorism. I mean, when you think about it, like, this show is not a kid's show, really. I can't say that it is in the later seasons.
Yeah, toward the later seasons, my arc was in the 5th season. The Umbara arc we talked about earlier was in the 4th season. So after about season 3, you know, you got to be a little more mature than an 8-year-old to watch this show.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But she was accused of this, and she was being framed. And she was being framed by one of her closest friends, Barriss Offee, which is a Jedi. And I think, actually, what a lot of people forget is how actually interesting it is about Barriss Offee's decision. Like, she frames Ahsoka because she frames Ahsoka to get out of her crime, obviously. But she bombed the Jedi Temple because she didn't agree with what the Jedi were standing for, what they were becoming. You know, with the whole war, they were peacekeepers and they're leading armies. And she's trying to, like, that. I mean, obviously terrorism's not really a great way to protest, but, like, I mean, you can see, like, the Jedi are all fractured at this point. There's no, like, the order is so unstable. And the fact that they immediately just were like, yep, we're going to send Ahsoka to a military trial. We're not even going to try her in the temple like they did with all the other Jedi. Is just, I don't know, it speaks to how the Republic, as Chancellor Palpatine's plans are coming to fruition, how the Republic is getting darker and darker. And we see, there are shots in this episode where Ahsoka's breaking out and she's running through this military compound. And they're being chased by these gunships that have, like, the prototype TIE fighter wings. You see the transition to the Empire. It's dark. It's raining. The clone troopers that we once saw as, like, these happy, lovable guys are portrayed as the villains.
Yeah.
And it's really good. And when she decides to leave after she's been proved innocent, it breaks Anakin. And it's so sad. I can't say how sad it is when she's walking down those steps because you have to watch the show. But I would go as far to say, if you don't at least tear up, you're not human.
Yeah, and really, the whole conversation they have once Anakin catches up to her is really the part that got me. Okay, so Anakin talks to Ahsoka once he catches up to her and says, more than you know, I know what it's like to walk away from the Order. I know what it's like to want to walk away from the Order. And she says, I know.
And it's so...
You just... Oh. Because she also helped keep track of Padme, essentially.
Yeah.
And so she knew about all of this.
Like, never explicitly, but she'd had to know. And she knew. And it's such a scene. We can't do it justice by speaking it out loud.
Yeah, and I just think it really talks about how that, even though that bond is broken at that point, it also shows how close it truly was.
Yeah. That
she knew all this and decided to keep it secret because that's her master.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think we definitely also need to talk about at least I think we finally need to get to, like, the end of the show, right?
Yeah.
The final of the lost episodes, you know. These episodes were only released on DVD. They were never aired, but they are a part of the show. They're season 6. And it dives in and season 6 has a lot of good arcs.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Really well done.
But I think the most important one is the Yoda arc, which actually served as the conclusion to the Clone Wars up until Disney renewed it.
Which is so exciting.
So exciting.
Because even though I do like this arc, it's not my favorite arc. I think the reason we should talk about it is because how important it really is.
Yeah.
So, you remember in the scene in Revenge of the Sith where Yoda says to Obi-Wan, I figured out how to communicate with your old master.
Yeah.
This is explaining how he did it. And how also pretty much how Qui-Gon did it too.
Yeah.
Which is really, really fascinating.
It shows Yoda meeting with these Force priestesses, like they call themselves the Wills, and it shows them teaching Yoda how to become a Force ghost. Because no other Jedi before Qui-Gon, had figured out how to preserve their life after death. And that's what this episode gets into. It's something that I never really knew I needed until I saw it.
Right. Like, I remember me telling you, I think I'm going to watch the Clone Wars. You said, oh my goodness, it's so good.
Yeah.
He's like, you know that scene in Revenge of the Sith where he talks about Qui-Gon? It'll all make sense. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And this scene does it so well. This whole arc, it talks about the struggles of being one with the Force and how there is two sides to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you didn't know it by now, one, probably should pay better attention. but also, you know, how strong the dark side really is.
Yeah.
And this whole show kind of echoes that too. Because, you know, obviously we see Anakin going through his transition into the dark side. But we also know Dooku was a former Jedi. Ventress was. It's just really, they talk about the Night Sisters, which are super strong in the dark side. Dark side's a theme that runs through the entire show.
Yeah. But this, like, the Yoda arc in particular, I think is one of the most important in the show. And that being said, I think we're getting close to time probably on the podcast. I think we're way over our goal.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to get off track when covering a topic as big and as beautiful as the Clone Wars. And because I want to say, when I say that this is one of the most important arcs of the show, that's a lot of arcs that are important. We have not mentioned near as many as we have not mentioned like anywhere close to all of the good arcs.
Yeah, there are so many entertaining arcs.
There's so many ones that really build. It's why the show is so important and why it's got such a cult following.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen another show that a fan base was so persistent that they wanted more, that they made Disney renew it?
Yeah,
you got to know that this is something special.
And really, I mean, there are, like Pierce said, there are tons of good arcs, but if you were to watch a few of them, I think the ones we named today are the ones you should probably watch.
Also watch the Mortis arc. We didn't mention it.
Oh.
It's very important. It's very, very important. We completely gassed over it because I'm pretty sure we could have talked for an entire hour about that.
Yeah, the Mortis arc is almost as important as the Yoda.
Almost.
Yeah, it's really good. If you like Anakin at all, you'll like it.
Yeah, and that being said, there's so many more.
So
many more. I don't want to tell you everything that happens because that would mean you would have less motivation to get a Disney Plus account and watch it right now.
Because you really should watch it.
If you take anything out of this podcast, I should watch the Clone Wars. Whether you're a Star Wars fan, whether you're a fan of just anything, whether you're a fan of good content, watch the Clone Wars. You can, listen, I'll tell you this from experience. You might think to yourself right now, oh, Pierce, I don't really like Star Wars. I just watched 40-some minutes of this podcast for no reason. But, like...
Part of that is true,
yeah.
To be clear.
but even if you don't like Star Wars at all, watch the Clone Wars. You can pretty much figure out the whole beginning thing. And I'll tell you by the end of it, I'd almost guarantee it that you'll be watching them. You'll be watching the movies. If anything could motivate someone to get into Star Wars, it's the Clone Wars.
Absolutely.
And that being said, as the new season approaches, we will be covering it on this podcast with a new segment.
The Clone Wars Quickie.
Yeah, we're going to just make these quick 10, 15-minute videos that are come out separate from the main podcast. You're still going to get your normal episodes, your normal weekly episodes. This will just be a little added bonus for you Clone Wars fans out there that want to hear our opinions on the episodes as they come out. We'll be covering all 12 of them.
Yeah, we kind of had this idea because we wanted to do something with the new season. Because, in case you can't tell, Clone Wars is one of me and Pierce's passions.
It's our favorite thing.
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to do something, and what better than to release one every week.
Yeah. And I think that this can also start a little bit of a precedent series where we can just cover shows as they come out after Clone Wars ends, because I know The Mandalorian will probably do the same thing.
Yeah, it comes
on
out in
this next
October,
season.
so
We might do a podcast on The Mandalorian itself, I would say. I mean, well, I think we definitely put it to the poll.
yeah,
But
send it to the poll, baby.
we send it to the polls. That being said, make sure if you are not following Roundtable_pod on Twitter, follow at Twitter. You guys decide what we talk about. So if you didn't like this episode because you're not a Star Wars fan, then maybe don't vote for Star Wars.
Yeah, or tell your friends not to vote for Star Wars either, because it was abundantly clear what people wanted us to talk about.
69%.
And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Our channel is growing at a rate that I did not predict, guys. This is kind of absurd to me that we're even at, what are we, 28 subscribers?
29.
We're at 29 subscribers. And I know that some of you sitting there are like, wow, that's a really small number. But you gotta think, like, we've got one video out, and
Yeah.
it's not even that good.
And I don't know if we know 29 people between the both of us.
So definitely, also, if you want, or also make sure to follow the Campus Citizen on Twitter. Their Twitter will be linked below, and make sure you go read some articles. The Campus Citizen has graciously allowed us to make this podcast, so please show them some love. Also, our personal social medias you can find them.
Yeah, they're not that hard to find.
They're not that hard to find.
And Pierce and I have a shout out from IUPUI Journalism coming up on the Instagram soon.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in checking that out, both of our beautiful faces will be both of our beautiful faces will be featured on their Instagram.
And they are beautiful.
I took Pierce's picture, so
It's
That's pretty
kinda
cool.
Cute. It's kind of cute. It's my Instagram profile picture. I really kind of like it.
well, thanks again for watching. We hope to see you next episode.
See you guys.